All right.
Hey,
It's going on. We're live. And we got a super special guest today. He's first time ever. We're gonna have a guest on the show, and he's an amazing guy. He's kind of what he calls himself a small business evangelist. So we can't wait to have him on. He's about to come on. Robin, what do you want to talk about?
do you know something? Do you know the marketing channel that over 80% of consumers report motivated them to buy a product? Which marketing channel do you think it is? So put it in the comments, put it in the chat. You get 5 seconds to tell me which marketing channel you think it is. And that's what we're talking about today. So
We need like a clock.
the channel that we're talking about today is influencers on social media. And influencer marketing is hot and growing. So right now, the prediction is that businesses are going to spend over $13.6 billion on influencers in social media.
Is that B with a B? That's a B million?
With a B. So how can local, small, medium-sized businesses get involved with the influencer marketing game? And it's really important to do that because businesses report that they earn over $5 for every $1 spent on influencers, because the influencers do cost money, and we're going to talk about that. So how do you get that kind of amazing ROI? And we're going to talk about that in this episode, so stay tuned. I'm Robin Kollner, the CEO of Digistar Media, an award-winning digital marketing agency, and I'm here today with two handsome marketing dudes. The first one, let's see if I get my finger right this way, is my cohort and partner in what I like to say, solving marketing crimes. The original ad man.
Me, Kyle McMurray. And you know what? If you guys stick around to the end, some people say, what if somebody doesn't allow you to be an influencer? What you're chasing an influencer, but they won't do your thing, they won't support you. We're going to show you a way if they're big enough that you can kind of get around that. So stay to the end. But right now we got to bring on that evangelist, Mr. Mike Dardano. There he is. That's a nice haircut, dude. You rocking
like
it.
That, man?
Yeah, that's the best. What's the board for?
Oh, because my chair sucks. My chair sucks, so I have to.
I thought if it was like you were bad, someone smacked you.
That too.
Well, listen. We got Mike here for a special reason. And that's because it's important that everybody really understand what influencer marketing is. So it's really simple. It's when a business partners with someone on social media who has a large following that represents the kind of people that should be buying their products or services. So they not only have a large following, but people care about what they say, they believe and they trust them way more than typical, we'll say, ads on the part of businesses. So we invited Mike here today because not only is he a business evangelist, but he is also an influencer. So, there's lots of different influencers. We think of the big shot celebrities with over 1 million followers, but most of us in business aren't going to afford having them promote us. And not only that, but it's not going to work because if I'm running a local gym in my area, Kim Kardashian's following may not come to, my gym, right? Okay. So I like to talk about influencers fall in a couple buckets. And you've got the big shots at the top with over 1 million followers. Those are celebrities. Then you've got the macro influencers who, we'll talk about they're in these houses in LA and in Austin and in Georgia. And they've got huge TikTok followings, Instagram followings. But now it's important to think if you're a local business, you can find local people with anywhere from 500 to 2,000 followers and maybe a little bit more. And we call them nano influencers or micro influencers because even if though they don't have a huge following, you only need a few clients or customers from somebody and they are hugely influential. So we've got a great nano micro influencer with us today. So here, let me turn the questions over to Mike Dardano. So, Mike, explain to me why people think of you as an influencer.
It's funny. It was never an intention to do that. When I started social media, it was just to sort of, it was for the band back in MySpace days. I had a band. And then all these other things came along. Yeah, all these other things came along. And what was interesting was I've always been a giver of information. I've always wanted to share information with people ever since I was a little kid. So I started doing that on social at the very embryonic stage of my social engagement on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram later, and Twitter a bit later. And slowly and organically through trench warfare built up these audiences, some intentionally, some not intentionally. And it's interesting. I'll get feedback from people. Oh, Mike, I saw that post about that event. That's why I'm going, because you posted on a LinkedIn. Another person said to me, he works at Pace. He goes, oh, well, I know what's going on because of what you share. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. And that encourages you more when you get that feedback.
Yeah.
Plus, events like client things for the certain business council and other places where I work. I want to get those events out. I want people to know what's happening. And then, of course, nonprofits. I think people really respond well when you share a lot of nonprofit stuff. They seem to really enjoy that.
So yeah, that's an important part because it helps people feel that there's more to who you are, and by defining your mission. So what you're telling people is really that you got to pay it forward. That in order to really become an influencer, you have to be nice and also share things and care about other people, right? So that people think that you're someone where you really want to. They'll miss out if they don't read what you're posting, and that's really great. So how can business owners find the right people? How do you
Yeah,
do that?
I know you're gonna talk about how to do it with software and stuff, and so that's one way. And the other way is it's trench warfare. It's like you're out there and you're looking around, you're sniffing around, you're following other pages. You're one of the greatest influencers that I know is Karen Proctor from Apple Moms. And I've been friends with her for years. She helped me with a few events in the past, but she's really good with sharing information from others. So she's someone I have in my thing if I need, to use her. Jamie Imperiati from Professional Women of Westchester. She's another one that's a micro influencer. She's on all these groups on Facebook. She has a group called Professional Women of Westchester and Professional Women of Putnam. And a lot of people follow her posts and go to her events. So she's another one. So it's somewhat trial and error, but it's also based on who you're trying to reach. So it's easy now because there's so many groups and pages on these social channels where you can just throw in a subject and see who comes up. And when you look at them, you want to look to see not only their audience size, but what's their engagement. If they're posting a lot of things on their social pages and there's no engagement, that's not an influencer. An influencer is someone who gets, in my opinion, an influencer also gets engagement on their posts. So having a big audience is fine, but it's like steroids. It's not what you really want.
Right.
You want somebody, even if a smaller audience, 500 people, but they're engaged, that's more valuable than 10,000 people that just look at the post and maybe like it twice.
It's like that old thing. If you've ever read that old article from like 2000, 1,000 true fans, right? You know this article, Kevin Kelly, right? If you have 1,000 people that are willing to spend $100 a year with you, you've got $100,000 you're a business. It's really, and it's funny because I just had a new client come to me that is in downtown New York, and they run a spa, a very special kind of spa. They hooked up with an influencer on Instagram, and this family drove from 3 hours away, deep Pennsylvania, to come to do this because of what the influencer said. So that just shows you the power that people now, are they going to be return visitor? I doubt it, but maybe. You don't know. But the fact is this woman, they got quite a bit of business from her, and some people were willing to drive 3 hours because they loved her so much. They really, she'd paid it forward, like you were saying, so much that they were willing to do all kinds of stuff for her.
Well, and the influencers, the nice thing, you have to find an influencer that aligns with the values of your brand and your business and has people that are looking for that information from you. So that means that you use trial and error, Mike, because you know some people. But honestly, there's a lot more software tools that are available to be able to find that right mix. It's not about just finding a large following, because actually the platforms punish those influencers if they don't get enough engagement. So if you have 3 people engaging with someone with 10,000 fans, it's actually the number ratio is worse than if you had 100 fans following you but 3 people engaging. So you see, they actually calculate those numbers. So I know there are a lot of platforms that PR agencies use. You can use BuzzSumo, you can use Cision, Tap Influence, Tracker in the B2B space, because you also need influencers influencers if you're in the professional services arena, a lawyer, a doctor, someone in insurance or in accounting, marketing consulting, all of that. So, there are lots of different kinds of influencers. And it is important to realize that this industry now has over 1,350 agency reps that call themselves influencer marketing agencies, in addition to PR firms. Now, that's a big number to think about. So, Mike, do you use any other tools to help you?
One of the things that I think is interesting is it's experimentation. I will experiment with tagging different groups and pages on social to see if they respond to what I'm doing, either for myself or for other clients. And it's happened before where this group, Sound Shore Moms and Northern Westchester Moms, is very cool about responding and engaging with content. And then you can establish a relationship. As we all know, those mom groups are very powerful. So for certain kinds of clients, they're really good. Another group that I experimented with is the sustainability groups, because Westchester has a lot of that. And so different villages and towns have sustainability groups, and they're very good about sharing stuff. But that was a lot of trial and error by subject. But then sometimes I'll just ask. One of my clients, I said, hey, who are some influencers in your group, in your industry, so I could check it out? And she told me. I checked them out. So word of mouth is good too. Asking other people if they may have knowledge of that subject. That's another thing. I think sometimes we're afraid to ask. Just ask some people. Robin, ask you a question. Kyle, and you go, if you either know or you don't, but then you can direct them. And I think with people need to do that more. Just ask someone they know that's in that business or in that industry and say, hey, who do you know on social that's an influencer? And if they don't know, they don't know. But many times they do. And it's huge.
And it's all about the referrals too. As Kyle mentioned, that person that drove that 3 hours, he or she's going to talk about with their experience and be in a position to refer business for their people that they know in a more local market. So now, do you have, when you establish these informal relationships, that's one thing. How about contractual arrangements? Because a lot of businesses really need to go to contract with these influencers to both protect their brand, their business, and to make sure they get what they're spending money on.
Sure. I mean, a lot of times what I do is I do it through me. So I'll have these other influencers that are contracted with me so I can control it, because I get a little nervous about letting that relationship go to an influencer. They seem like they're cool and their stuff is pretty neat, but I don't, maybe they're not that good at communicating on the phone with people. They're awesome on the computer, but they're not that good in person. So I have it run through me, and we agree on what they're going to do. Sometimes it's an hourly rate, sometimes it's by post or whatever, and have it all in writing. Because if there is a disagreement, having been to small claims court before, it's much easier when you have something in writing than if you just have a handshake. So it's good to protect yourself.
So, it's interesting. You said put everything in writing. I've heard incidences where influencers take down posts because no one put in the contract that the post had to live forever or stay on for a certain amount of time. So the businesses need to make sure that they outline a lot of details. Do you have any other thoughts? Kyle, do you have any thoughts on what would put in a contract that the clients need to think about to make sure they cover their bases?
Everything. No, I mean, seriously, you do need to think about what are you trying to do. And that's the other thing is I think a lot of people go to influencers and they're like, oh, cool, I just gave them a bunch of money and they gave me a shout out. You need to be more specific than that. It has to be a real business arrangement to where you're saying, okay, I need this shout out at this time, and think through your strategy. What would be the best time for them to give you a shout out, and really, ask them about their metrics, just like I do when I'm asking somebody to promote something to their email list. I'm very specific. When are you going to do it? What is the copy? What are you going to say? All that stuff is outlined ahead of time. Otherwise, they could go, I said something about you when no one was watching, right? So you need to think of it as a real business. It's not magic. It's a business relationship.
Right. And, remember that these people are creating content on behalf of someone. It's not even just a shout out. It's actual creation. Most of the influencers are influencers because people like the creativity that they express in. And sometimes that fits, and sometimes that could be a little, not exactly perfect. So it's getting a little bit more complicated. Mike, is there anything else you want to share with us about problems that occur, or caveats, or things people need to remember to protect themselves in this area, or make sure that they can really get what they need out of influencer marketing?
Sure. When Kyle was just talking about influencers, one of the things I think about is what else are they promoting? You gotta understand. You're right. Like, what if they're promoting some brand that's like the antithesis of what you are?
Right.
That's the other thing. So you've got to make sure that you're going through the news feed, and then if you do talk with them, what other things do you promote? Because maybe they're promoting a tobacco product. Well, you don't like tobacco, so or whatever. Or maybe they do political posts. That's the other thing. You gotta political things, the way the country is right now, 50% this, 50% that. You don't want to be involved in anything where you're going to potentially lose 50% of your clients because of some political post. So the influencer can't really be political. It's a huge mistake if you get involved with them. If they are, I don't care where you lean, it's a problem. So those are the kind of things that a cursory look at their feed might not give you. So you really got to work through it, go down. I'll look at people. I'll go several years through their thing just to check to see what kind of posts they've done in the past. Also, you want to see about comments, how they've responded to comments. If people respond to comments nasty, like, what are you doing? You can't do that. So protocols have to be agreed upon about, you don't respond to anything. I'll respond, whatever. So you're right. Everything has to be crystal clear and spelled out, because if it isn't, then it happens and you haven't spelled it out, then it's kind of your fault as the company or person that hired them. So
So
due
you mentioned,
diligence.
yeah. So you mentioned relationships, and relationships are key. And before you even go and approach an influencer, you got to start following them on social and engaging with their content. You can't ask. Don't be an ask on social media. You can't ask before you start to build a relationship with them. So nurture that. Call it sucking up. So let's turn to the ad man and ask him, how does advertising fit into influencer marketing?
Uh, Russell Brunson from ClickFunnels has something he called, it's not even his actually, it's actually my first mentor, whose name was Chet Holmes, had this thing called, he called it the Dream 100. He said every business should have this. And this is where you look through and you go, who are the top 100 people in my niche? Like, who has the audience's ear and the most influence over it? Make a huge list and start following them immediately. Start commenting, see how you like them. And Chet Holmes used that to build his first business, which was with Warren Buffett's partner named Charlie Munger. So they took a magazine that was dead last. They hired this cocky young kid named Chet Holmes, and within a year he turned it around and made it number one. And all he did was take the top 10 advertisers and start writing them every day, every week, and really building a relationship with them. And over that year, they all went to his magazine. So this is super cool. And this is also how you're going to get around people that don't want to advertise, that don't want to do business with you. Some influencers just say no. Well, if they're a big enough target on Facebook and Instagram, you can actually target their audience with ads, right? You can even mention them. Say like, hey, you a Chet Holmes fan? Why don't you check my thing out? So love Tony Robbins, you should look at mine. So you can do stuff or make offers that would appeal to somebody like that. So it's kind of a backdoor strategy, but it's fantastic. And, I know that Russell does this for all his traffic strategy. He uses the Dream 100 as the basis for everything because it's an incredibly powerful thing. And again, like, it doesn't have to be national. You could be looking in your city. It could be looking in your regional. But it's just a fantastic way to do it. And, of course, there's paid things on Instagram. There's those crazy things they call loops, on Instagram, where Kim Kardashian will promote something and mention you as part of it, and you can pay for that. And, there's a lot of different complex strategies we don't have time to get into with that, but they work. And I've seen people build huge followings and huge businesses off their back if they're strategic. And again, that goes back to what we've been saying the whole time. Be strategic. Know exactly what you want out of this. Don't think one shout out or one little thing is going to help your business. It needs to be what you guys have been saying, build a relationship.
So let's show everybody where they can ask questions about influencer marketing, because we need to wrap it up. So do we have our little slide with all the good stuff on it? Be sure to follow the Facebook group Dynamic Marketers and comment on our show. Send us your questions, because influencer marketing is really a much more of a, it's not a one-stop shop, one size fits all. Okay. And so who's got the last word here?
All three of us. We'll do it like a go influencer on 3. I don't.
All right. Go influence.
No.
Right. And you know what? You can always find us in the Facebook group as well if you have more questions. Maybe I think Mike's in that group. You in that group?
I am.
Westchester Marketer.
Can I say one thing though? I just want to bring this up because I neglected to do this. All these requests you get from Instagram, from these obscure people about, oh, you can buy 10,000 followers, whatever. Don't do it. Just delete them and block them. Delete and block. Delete and block. Do not do that. It's a waste of money. They will rip you off. Delete and block. Only take requests from people that you know. Don't do that. Bad.
Bad kitty. All right. That's it. That's it for the Adnan and Robin show with the social evangelist Mike Tardano. Till next week, we'll see you then.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.